Most people are living their lives in a beautiful prison of their own making. They wake up in a state of functional hypnosis, walking through the same routines, thinking the same limiting thoughts, and wondering why the fire in their soul has turned to ash. They wait. They wait for the right time. They wait for the economy to change. They wait for someone to come along and give them permission to be great. But the world doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you demand. The difference between a life of quiet desperation and a life of extraordinary power isn't talent, it isn't luck, and it isn't the secret. It is state. It is the ability to take a broken, tired, fearful body and snap it into a state of absolute certainty in a fraction of a second. If you cannot control your own internal climate, you will always be a victim of the external weather. You are not a manager of your circumstances. You are the architect of your destiny. And the blueprint starts the moment you decide that good enough is no longer an option. In the early 1980s, a young man sat in a 400-square-foot apartment in Venice, California, washing his dishes in his bathtub because he didn't have a kitchen sink. He was broke, overweight, and paralyzed by a feeling of insignificance. But inside that 6-foot-7-inch frame, a storm was brewing. He wasn't interested in just coping with life. He wanted to understand the invisible levers that move human behavior. He began to study the titans of therapy, the masters of business, and the legends of the past. He didn't just read their books, he modeled their souls. He realized that success leaves clues, and if you follow those clues with enough intensity, you can compress decades of learning into days of action. He went from a penniless kid with a high school education to the man that presidents, billionaires, and Olympic athletes call when the world is on the line. This is Tony Robbins, and he didn't just write books, he created a technology for the human spirit. To understand the force that is Tony Robbins, you have to understand the hunger of a boy who had to provide his own Thanksgiving dinner because his family couldn't afford a turkey. Tony grew up in a chaotic, unstable home, moving from one father to the next, witnessing the pain of people who had lost their will. This wasn't just poverty of the pocket, it was poverty of the spirit. It was in this crucible of suffering that Tony made a decision, not a wish, not a hope, but a decision, the kind that comes from the Latin root decidere, which means to cut off any other possibility. He realized that his past did not equal his future unless he lived there. He began to experiment with the relationship between the mind and the body, discovering that if you change your physiology, you change your psychology instantly. He became a pioneer of neural conditioning, proving to the world that you don't need years of therapy to change a habit. You only need a high enough level of leverage. When are you going to stop lying to yourself? You say you want more. You say you want the business, the body, the relationship, the impact. But look at your patterns. You are addicted to the soft life. You are addicted to the comfort of your own excuses. You have turned someday into a graveyard where your potential goes to rot. Dale Carnegie taught you how to talk. Earl Nightingale taught you how to think. But Tony Robbins is here to demand that you move. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is only potential power. Execution trumps knowledge every single day of the week. You don't have a resource problem, you have a resourcefulness problem. If you had the hunger, you would find the way. The only thing standing between you and the life you want is the bullshit story you keep telling yourself as to why you can't have it. The core of the Robbins philosophy is built on one devastatingly simple truth. We don't get our goals, we get our standards. Most people have a list of shoulds. I should lose weight. I should make more money. I should be a better leader. But people don't change their shoulds. They only change when a should becomes a must. When you raise your standards, when you decide that you will no longer tolerate a life that is less than what you are capable of, your brain shifts. It stops looking for excuses and starts looking for solutions. Tony showed us that the secret isn't just a thought, it's an emotional state backed by massive, relentless action. By the time he was in his mid-20s, he was already a millionaire, not because he was lucky, but because he had conditioned himself to be a person who could not be denied. He was no longer just a man, he was a catalyst, showing a sleeping world that the giant within them was ready to wake up. If you want to change your life, you have to understand the invisible forces that are pulling your strings. Tony Robbins discovered that every human being on this planet, regardless of their culture, their age, or their bank account, is driven by the same 6 human needs. These aren't just desires, they are spiritual requirements. We are all addicted to certainty, the need to feel safe and avoid pain. We crave variety, the spice of surprise and challenge. We hunger for significance, the need to feel unique and important. We starve for connection and love. And finally, we seek growth and contribution. Most of the greats we have studied in this series mastered the last 2, but most of the world is trapped in the first 4. They spend their entire lives trying to feel significant by tearing others down, or they chase certainty until their lives become a stagnant pond of boredom. Tony realized that if you can change the way you meet these needs, you can change your destiny overnight. Most of you don't want to solve your problems, you want to nurse them. You use your problems to get significance. You love to tell people how hard your life is, how much you've suffered, and why the world is against you. Why? Because it makes you feel special. It gives you an excuse to stay small. Tony Robbins calls this the problem identity. You have woven your failures into the fabric of who you are. But listen to me, your story is the anchor that is drowning you. You are more addicted to the sympathy you get from failing than you are to the glory you would get from winning. Break the addiction. Stop using your past as a crutch and start using it as fuel. If you don't kill your excuses will kill your future. Tony's most powerful tool for human change is what he calls the Triad. He proved that at any given moment, your state, how you feel, is determined by 3 things you can control instantly. First is your physiology, how you move, how you breathe, and your facial expressions. You cannot be depressed while standing like a conqueror, breathing deeply and looking at the horizon. Second is your focus, what you choose to see. If you look for what's wrong, you will find it. If you look for the opportunity, it will reveal itself. And third is your language, the labels you put on your experience. If you say you're devastated by a setback, your brain chemistry reacts differently than if you say you're challenged. Tony didn't just teach people to think positive, he taught them to rewire the biological machinery of their emotions. He showed us that meaning equals emotion, and emotion equals life. As the 90s rolled in, the world began to take notice. Tony wasn't just a motivational speaker, he was a strategic interventionist. He was the man who was called to the Kremlin to speak to world leaders, the man who coached Bill Clinton through the darkest days of his presidency, and the man who stood on the sidelines with tennis legends as they reclaimed their titles. He proved that the inner game is 80% of success, while the mechanics are only 20%. He showed that even the most powerful people on earth have limiting beliefs, invisible glass ceilings they've placed on their own potential. Tony's mission became the destruction of those ceilings. He created Date with Destiny and Unleash the Power Within, massive events where thousands of people walked across 1,200 degrees coals. Not because walking on fire makes you a hero, but because if you can do what seems impossible, you realize that every other impossibility in your life is a lie. Your life is not the result of your circumstances, it is the result of your decisions. Every moment is a crossroads. Right now, you are making a decision about who you are and what you are capable of. Most of you decide to stay the same by default. You think decision is a mental exercise. It's not. A real decision is followed by action. If you don't act,
You haven't decided. You're just dreaming. Tony Robbins took the lessons of Earl Nightingale's mind and Dale Carnegie's heart and added the fire of the human will. Are you going to keep shoulding all over yourself, or are you going to make a must? The clock is ticking on your potential. The only thing keeping you from the edge of greatness is the fear of taking the first step. Jump.
Once you have mastered your internal state, Tony Robbins turns your eyes toward the ultimate game of the external world, financial freedom. He realized that you can have a heart of gold and a mind of steel, but if you are a slave to a paycheck, you are not truly free. Most people treat money like a mystery, something that happens to other people. They view the markets as a casino and wealth as a stroke of luck. But Tony spent 7 years interviewing the 50 most brilliant financial minds on the planet, from Ray Dalio to Warren Buffett, and he discovered that wealth is not a mystery, it is a system. It is a set of rules that, when followed with obsession, lead to an inevitable result. He taught us that you don't get rich by working for money, you get rich by having money work for you. You must move from being a consumer in the economy to becoming an owner. You say you want financial freedom, but your actions say you want comfortable chains. You are terrified of the risk, so you settle for the certainty of a life you hate. You spend more time planning your 2-week vacation than you do planning your financial destiny. Tony Robbins didn't just teach us to save, he taught us to aggressively allocate. He showed us that the secret to wealth isn't a higher salary, it's the power of compounding combined with the asymmetric risk-reward. Most of you are waiting for a windfall. You're waiting for the lottery or the perfect business idea. Stop waiting. You don't earn your way to wealth, you invest your way there. The only difference between a billionaire and a broke man is the way they perceive and utilize their capital. Are you a master of your money, or is your money the master of you? Tony broke down the walls of the financial industry, exposing the hidden fees and the mutual fund traps that bleed the average person dry. He introduced the world to the core 4 principles of investing. Don't lose money, asymmetric risk, focus on tax efficiency, diversification, the only free lunch, and compounding. But beyond the numbers, Tony focused on the psychology of wealth. He discovered that most people have a financial thermostat set at a certain level. If they make more than that, they find a way to blow it. If they make less, they find a way to earn it. Tony's mission was to reach into the brains of millions and turn that thermostat up to abundance. He proved that you cannot create wealth from a state of scarcity. You have to feel wealthy before the money shows up, because gratitude is the ultimate state that cancels out fear. As the decade turned, Tony's focus evolved. He realized that the ultimate state is not just about personal power or financial gain, it is about contribution. He began to feed millions of families through the Feeding America program, turning his personal hunger as a boy into a global mission to end starvation. He proved that the science of achievement is worthless without the art of fulfillment. We see billionaires who are miserable and paupers who are joyful. The difference? One is growing and giving, the other is stagnant and taking. Tony Robbins became the bridge between the high-performance world of business and the deep spiritual world of service. He showed us that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. He challenged every great in the making to ask themselves, who am I becoming and what am I leaving behind? The world doesn't pay you for what you know, it pays you for the value you bring. If you want to make 10 times the money, you have to find a way to be 10 times more valuable to the marketplace. Most of you are asking the world for a handout while you're holding a thimble. Bring a bucket. Increase your skills, sharpen your mind, and master your emotions. Wealth is a reflection of your growth. If you aren't growing, your bank account is dying. Tony Robbins took the seeds of Earl Nightingale's thought and Dale Carnegie's influence and watered them with the fire of massive action.
Don't just sit there and visualize your bank account. Go out and solve a problem that is so big the world has no choice but to pay you. The era of average is over. Welcome to the era of mastery.
We have traveled through the mind with Earl Nightingale. We have navigated the human heart with Dale Carnegie. But here, at the summit of the world of greats, we face the final frontier, the human spirit. Tony Robbins didn't just teach us to think or to talk, he taught us to be. He showed us that life is not happening to us, but for us. Even the pain, even the failures, even the moments where you feel like you are being crushed, it is all training for the person you are becoming. Tony's final lesson is that your destiny is not a destination, it is a direction. It is the persistent, daily commitment to what he calls Carnegie, constant and never-ending improvement. It is the realization that the giant within only wakes up when you stop asking for permission and start giving yourself a command. This is it, the end of the line. You have the knowledge, you have the strategy, you have the blueprint, but none of it matters if you don't have the guts. Most of you will watch this video, feel a spark of inspiration, and then go right back to the same mediocre life you had 10 minutes ago. You'll go back to the same state, the same story, and the same excuses. Why? Because change is uncomfortable. Because growth requires you to kill the person you used to be so that the person you are meant to be can be born. Tony Robbins spent 40 years proving that anyone can change, but only if they reach a point of internal threshold, a point where you say, no more, not another day, not another hour. Have you reached that point, or are you going to keep negotiating with your own potential? Consider the lineage we have built. Earl Nightingale gave you the seed, the realization that you become what you think about. Dale Carnegie gave you the soil, the understanding that your success is rooted in how you treat others. But Tony Robbins gave you the sun and the storm, the raw energy and the relentless action required to make that seed break through the earth. These three men represent the holy trinity of the modern achiever: mind, heart, and will. You cannot have one without the others. To think without acting is a dream. To act without thinking is a nightmare. But to think, to influence, and to act with massive intensity, that is how you become a force of nature. That is how you enter the ranks of the greats. Tony Robbins continues to stand as a titan, a man who transformed his own trauma into a lighthouse for millions. He showed us that the only limit to our impact is our imagination and our commitment to service. Whether he is standing on a stage in front of 20,000 people or sitting across from a single broken soul, his message is the same: live with passion. This isn't just a slogan, it's a requirement. If you aren't living with passion, you aren't living, you're just waiting to die. Tony's journey from that bathtub in Venice Beach to the private islands of Fiji wasn't a straight line, but it was a must. He proved that the human spirit is indestructible if it has a why that is big enough to pull it through anyhow. Your time is running out. Every second you spend in indecision is a second you are stealing from the people you were meant to serve. The world is starving for leaders. It is starving for people who have the state of a lion and the heart of a saint. Tony Robbins gave you the tools to unleash the power within. Now, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to be a footnote in history, or are you going to be the headline? Rise up, change your state, change your story, change your life. The giant is awake, the fire is lit, the world is waiting. Go out and show them who you really are. This concludes Chapter 10 of The World of Greats. Tony Robbins taught us that the quality of your life is the quality of communication, both with others and, most importantly, with yourself. If you are ready to stop being a passenger and start being the pilot, your journey has just begun. Subscribe to cement your place in the world of greats. We are entering the final chapters of this era. Share this video. There is a giant sleeping in someone you know. Be the one to wake them up. Stay focused, stay hungry. We'll see you in the next chapter.